to God. Gonna minister to God. Gonna minister to God. Gonna minister to God.
Welcome to the Ministry Without Walls podcast, episode number 5. So I want to welcome my friend, longtime friend. It's hard to find sisterhoods. It's hard to have a friendship lasting over. We are now going into decade number 3. 30 years of friendship? Close to 30 years of friendship. So whether you attend Bedside Baptist, whether you're Pentecost, whether you go to Church of God in Christ, Assembly of God, or whether you just not a Christian at all, we welcome you and invite you to listen to this podcast because we're going to talk about what the churches won't. So welcome, Keina.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, you're welcome. So we have been friends since high school, and I was introduced to you by my brother who was best friends with your brother. And so they're younger than us, and then you were a little bit older than us. And so I just inserted myself in the gap.
Yes.
And in that, in 30 years, people grow, people change. And so you really would know me, right? So if somebody be like, oh, because Minister Green, X, Y, and Z, you could put a spin on it that they would have no idea. And I think that a lot of times people don't want to tell people they past, but I'm one of the ministers. I don't care. You know all about my past. I tell my story better than you tell my story. So, we talked about in some of my previous podcasts, I always mention the fact that, I never felt worthy when it came to becoming a Christian woman, especially leading, especially being in front of people, because I got a couple of baby daddies, ex-husband, I got some people out there, right? And so although I don't claim them and they probably don't claim me, and it is well with my soul, okay? So, at the end of the day, we know they exist, right?
Exactly,
and
yes.
I always felt like if I was standing in front of the audience, somebody would show up from my past. Somebody would show up from high school. Somebody would show up that would have that insider information.
Yes.
So far, nobody showed up. So that's a blessing. That's really good. But I want you to just talk about, so first of all, it's hard to be friends. And I know my daughter prior to the recording was asking you, like, how did y'all maintain that? It's hard to be friends with women.
Yes, it is. It's very, very hard.
And church women.
Very.
I'm not coming for y'all. I'm just saying.
Just saying.
Y'all a little different.
Yes.
It's hard to be friends with church women that go to the church sanctified, Fireside Baptist, judgmental. I said it,
because I sit there every
women.
week, so it's like I can judge and I can do this, but that makes it difficult. That's not how it should be.
Right. It shouldn't be that you walk into a place and this is the place for healing. This is the place where you come to be vulnerable, where you come to expose your insecurities, where you come to expose your hurts and the things that make you who you are, and then you're judged for them. And so I always, try to tell my friends, because then some of my friends stopped being my friends. Like, I stopped getting invited to cookouts. And that's when I knew I was really saved. They're saved and then they're really saved. Yes. Saved is when you accepted God and you go into the church. You ain't really transformed. You just kind of get the word and, listen to a few podcasts, Bishop Jakes and them online a little bit. You play a little gospel on Sunday, but Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, you living a little different, right?
Yes,
but you saved because you know God, you like God, you okay with God. But when you save and you get into a relationship with God, then everything about you starts to change and people start to see it. So I remember when I stopped getting invited to cookouts and things like that, I was like, really, God? So this where we are? But the one thing that remained constant is I didn't have that with your family.
Yes.
Your door, your mother's door, your father's door. Anytime your father saw me in ShopRite, just anywhere on Route 22, anywhere we were at, he'd be like, "Oh, this is like one of my daughters." Like, he would not take any kind of pause. Like, well,
yep.
I don't know.
No.
It was like, this is family.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, no matter what she's doing, I'm so proud of her. This is family. So how do you do that?
Be. I mean, you should be happy when you see somebody going through their journey, and that's kind of what I'm starting to experience now. I can kind of feel the difference. I was that person, raised in a church, right? I was there all the time, and going through my journey, what I tell people was I was attending. but I wasn't present.
Right.
And I could tell the difference. Like you said, you can tell who calls you to go out and things like that. You know, I'm not a drinker anymore. So, you know, people don't want to invite you. I'm like, well, you can drink in front of me. That's not, you know, that's your thing.
Right.
Like you said, why can I not get invited? I could still have fun.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't know why people think that when you go and you really start going through changes that you want to lose friends or
Right.
people don't want to be around you. Or like you said, you know, everybody got a pass. I got a pass, and sometimes I felt the same way, like, you know, can I do this? What are people going to say? They're going to be like, oh, look at her now. She's, you know, being all uplifted and X, Y, and Z. But I really know her. But you know what? It's not, I had to learn how to put everybody to the side and worry about me.
Right.
I really had to do that. And I appreciate and watching you, that really inspired me. Because
thank you.
I was like, look at her, you know, because you're who you are. You
Yes.
did not change.
Right.
But you inspired, you know, you're going out and you're reaching out to people, but you didn't change.
Right.
And that was inspiring. And to make me say, you know what? I don't care what nobody else say.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm going to tell you, like, that really inspired me to watch you. It really did.
I think a lot of times people think when you come into a relationship with God, it causes you to change, right? And in essence, it does. But if you're being true, you're not going to change who you are. You're just going to change the way in which you operate and do things, right? So, you know, we done went to the bars plenty of times.
Yes.
Listen, okay? I used to get drunk with the best of them,
Yep.
okay? But once I started to really, really get to a place where I was leading and people were looking at me and people needed me, I always wanted to be in the right space of mind. I always wanted to be given the right and sound advice, right? So I didn't want to be inebriated or I didn't want anything to alter. So, and I felt like drinking wasn't, you know, I'm like, when I wake up, do I still have the same problems? I do, you know, so
Yes.
on a Friday night where I wanted to kind of start a certain place, and I'm like, okay, if I drink, if I have a good time, does it change what happened on Friday on Monday morning? It doesn't. All I did was spend $150 at somebody's bar, and I'm still feeling the same way on Monday. So
Exactly.
I started to change in which I maneuver, but that don't mean I don't like to go out. I still like to go out. I still like to get dressed. I still wear makeup. I
Yes.
still wear stilettos. And that was a whole nother thing, because they were like, oh, if you preaching, you can't be preaching in them 5-inch heels. And I was like, I can't, but I can.
Yes.
You know, I have done it before. Now, if I need to come out my shoes because I got to slay you in the spirit, or I got to lay hands on you, and I still lay hands, just in the proper way this time. I lay hands in the proper way, because I used to lay hands a different kind of way before. So now I lay hands, and yes, I will come out my shoes because I don't want anybody getting hurt.
Yeah.
I've taken off my necklaces because I wear a lot of big, heavy jewelry. So yeah, I know when it's time for me to go to work for God, and I can be as plain as possible. But I don't gotta change. Like, I've always been a diva. So whether I'm a drunk diva, whether I'm a saved diva, whether I'm a high diva, you know, whether I'm a diva that got a man Monday through Friday, whether I'm a diva that's committed, whatever it was, I was still a diva in what it is. I embodied what I was doing at the time, right?
Exactly.
So now I'm at the place, like, I want the young women to know, because a lot of times they be like, oh, Minister Grant, I can't do what you do. And I'm like, you don't need to do what I do, but I want you to be you. But you can still have a relationship with God and do what he's calling you to do.
Exactly.
Because what he's telling me to do is something different than what he's telling you to do. We all have a gift. And I think a lot of times they see us in church and they're like, ooh, like you said, they like, well, we know she had a past, but she are holy and sanctified. When somebody called me holy and sanctified, I said, who is holy and sanctified? Because let me tell you something. I have 2 grown daughters. Let's talk about the grown daughters,
Oh,
right?
yes.
So I have a grown daughter who's in her 20s, and then I have one that thinks she grown. She about to be 18 and getting ready to go off to college. And I want to talk to you about the Kirk Franklin thing, right? Because I feel like we've been good girlfriends for 30 years. We can talk about that.
Yes.
If you wasn't at church and your daughter called you and pissed you off, I'm talking about right now today, and she recorded you, couldn't you have been Kirk Franklin?
Yeah. Yeah.
When my daughter said, did you hear? I said, girl, as saved and sanctified as I am right now today, if my oldest daughter recorded me maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, y'all may hear something you don't like, because sometimes people test,
Yes.
right?
And they could pull you out.
Right.
And there's something about our children that can do that. Am I different? Possibly.
Right.
But there's times where she's still
Right.
pushed me to that point
Right.
where it's like it just takes you out, and you're just like, it happens. No one's
Right.
perfect.
No
You know
one's
what I mean?
perfect.
No
Right.
one's perfect.
And
And
I
I think
know-
that's the problem.
Yeah, I think and I saw what he was trying to do. It was like, yeah, y'all think my father's so holy and he's saving people with his music and stuff like that. But let's think about the fact that this is how he act outside of. But I didn't see it like that. I saw it as, in that moment when I was hearing some of the content, and we don't know the full story. I don't know the backstory, the before story, and the middle story. I just know what was exposed. But as I was listening to it, I said, I can only imagine he probably thought about all the sacrifices he made, right? Because I think about those, like all the meals I may have missed to make sure you had, all the things I didn't do to make sure you could do, right?
Exactly.
That stuff will make you mad as I don't know what.
Beyond, you'll just go, you have no idea.
Right.
How much I've sacrificed and how much I've done.
Right.
But then you have the audacity, and like you said, we're human. You know what I mean? We're not perfect.
Right.
And I think that's sometimes the issue. We're not saying giving people passes, but everybody's human. Everybody's allowed to feel a certain way, but it's what do you do after you've done something? What's the lessons that you've learned after you may have reacted a certain way or you've done something?
Right.
And there's a difference in having two lives and being human.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Right. And I think sometimes it's reaction versus response.
Yeah.
I think that Kurt was caught in a reaction.
Definitely.
Because he was in reaction mode. He was upset, right?
You know how many times I went to
right.
yank her up?
As opposed to responding, because sometimes you sit back and you be like, "Oh, I'm gonna get him,"
Like,
you know.
okay.
And that's where I am sometimes, like with my daughters, because daughters. Kurt, I get you with your son, but let me say, daughters, sis, if you out there with daughters take you to a whole nother level.
Definitely.
And if you've been a single mother, if you are a minority mother, because I feel like minority mothers go through this a little bit more so than other women, right? If you've been in an urban area, you're a minority mother, you're in single motherhood, and you raise these girls sometimes get to a place where I almost feel like they want to test.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
What they can
You're
do.
in a hood. Like I'ma just see is my mother really as hood as they say she was? So I feel like it's a level of test. And I remember that I used to be like, and I would always say to my daughters, so my daughters, even though they seen you and they known you, they would really know you, because I'd be like, let me tell you something. Ask Keina.
Yes.
Right? And there was a lot of Facebook posts at that time that was saying the person that tests you in a gangster the most is your daughter.
Oh, yes.
And I felt that. And I would always tell my daughters, like, you need to ask my girlfriends, because you don't have no idea. Like, I know that you think I'm a little older, I'm a little thicker, that you could take me. But I promise you, if I really pull from within all the things I did for you, the fact that, baby daddies may have not been there, all I sacrificed, the struggle, I may end up hurting you. So that may not be what you want to do. This ain't what you want.
No.
And I used to have to tell my oldest daughter that all the time, like, this right here, this ain't what you want,
Nope.
right? Because you don't know what I've been through, right? In
Exactly.
order for you to be who you are and for you to have the things that you have. And I think that sometimes people forget that there is an inner gangster, right?
Yeah.
Because we all had to come from something. I always think about, Paul and how he was transformed from Saul. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, but I'm sure at some point, if somebody really tested his inner gangster,
It's
right?
there.
He like, hey.
You don't want to push that
I
butt
used
so
to
far.
be a murderer. Like, don't play with me. Like, I be killing people. So you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Exactly.
I think that sometimes we gotta, start responding and not reacting. So now that's what I'm working on in my life. It's like, responding and not necessarily reacting. And it is good, because I know a lot of times in ministry they say, well, I don't want to keep my same friends. For me, that's a blessing, because
Exactly.
I want to keep my same friends, because you've known me and you can attest to certain things. Because sometimes when you get to a certain place in life, people really don't know what's real and what's not.
No.
But you have people that can verify that these things take place. Like, I can verify that you were an amazing single mother. I can verify the sacrifices that you make. Because sometimes our kids think we make stuff up.
Yeah. And like you said, having those friends sometimes just to bring you back to that place. Like, to ground you back and say, this is you, this is what you need to do. Or like you said, when you have that moment, you could pick up the phone and like, I need somebody to talk to me right now because, X, Y, and Z. And, and like you said, our daughters, they can do it. And, but like you said, and if they see the change, then they're kind of looking at you like, well, what's going on with her? Because, me, I used to flip off the handle all the time. I would lose it. I said, I'm getting too old. My blood pressure goes up. I'm upset the rest of the day. She's walking around like nothing.
Right.
So now I'm quiet, but I think that freaks her out a little bit more that, like you said, I'm not reacting. Now it's a response. I'll talk to you when I'm ready.
Right.
But I'm upset right now, and we'll talk later. And then it's like, well, wait a minute.
Right.
Wait, what's going on? This is different.
Right.
Because me, I get excited. Everything is good. I'm like, I'm getting too old.
Right.
I got to learn how to take it down a notch. I got to stop, even just with everything, I got to stop letting everybody else make me upset or taking things personally. That's their problem and not my problem.
Right.
And I actually went out with a girlfriend about a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, you just seem so grounded, so less tolerant, X, Y, and Z. I said, I really had to let things go. I had to learn. It was funny. I was just telling somebody, I had to learn how to tell people no, because that's yes for me. I'm giving up too much of myself. And that's where I am even with my daughter. You know what? I've done my job. You'll always be my child. But we got to take like hours back. We got to be there to help people and things like that. But sometimes we got to take ours back because then we do get in those angry places and we do get too much. And I'm like, you get tired of being tired. And that's, I think, what happened with me. I got tired of being tired. And I'm like, nope, this is... do what you feel you need to do. I mean, you don't want to push me, but...
Right. I ain't no killer, but don't test me. See, and that's what I love. I feel like the churches, instead of telling me to pray about it, have a candid conversation. Because I remember when I was having these issues, you go for counsel. And I'm like, listen, my daughter, girl, just pray. Pray. I'm going to kill this girl. Like, prayer does work. Believe me, prayer works. Prayer works, okay? I am not saying that the move of God can't take over, but I'm saying in the moment, if I'm going to choke you, you may want to give me a little better counsel than to pray about whatever she or he just did. You may want to say to me, come outside. Let's go for a ride. I have a girlfriend. She'd be like, let's just come to my house. We'll just go take a walk around the little, she got a little park around her house. We just take a walk around the park because I'm that angry. Exactly. And prayer may not be the go-to. I'll pray later. But when I'm in that moment, you need people that you can call. And I think sometimes, they want us to be so holy and sanctified that, like you said, they forget that we're human too. Yeah. We have flesh that we operate under, right? And so although you're hearing the voice of God, it will still cause you to make a mistake if you're not careful, right? Because I'm listening for God, but I'm still reacting. And I always think about when I do my domestic violence trainings and I talk to women who either, came that close to murdering their spouses or, their exes. And I remember having this candid conversation with somebody and I said, what's the difference between me and her? And this was somebody who had did 10 years for murdering her abuser. And they were like, oh no, Minister Green, you anointed, you this, you that. I said, do you know I almost did 25 to life? And she looked at me and she was like, what? I said, I almost did 25 to life. But I thought about it and God showed me my life really quickly. So instead of reacting, when I was in a domestic situation, I left the house. I said, but when I left the house, do you know I had a plan? it was going to be premeditated murder, because I had already mapped out, and I wrote it down on paper, because that was before we really used cell phones and all of that. But I had wrote it down on paper. I knew what time we went to work. I knew where the mistress lived. I knew where she worked at. That was at the time when we used to, call people. We actually had a house phone, so you could trace people's calls and addresses.
Yes.
And I ain't telling me and Keina's business, but we worked for a telecommunications company.
Oh, yes.
And we had friends, and I still got friends that sometimes works for the Verizon and AT&T. So I would just drop a number, they could run an address. I'm just telling you what I did. I'm not telling you about what anybody else did. I'm just telling you that back in my gangster days, I could find you if I really wanted to lay hands on you. So I remember sitting in the car saying,
"Oh, we would ride around."
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And I remember saying to my girlfriend that I told my daughter that at one point in time I would even switch cars. Like, how I'd be like, "Girl, I need your car today." We would switch cars. Because see, if I want some information, right? We're very good detectives. Women are very good detectives. We find out the information that we need to know. But what we do with the information is what sets us apart from the people that are convicted in jail, right? So
Correct.
I could have very well, because in my mind I had it all mapped out how to get away with murder. Like I knew I could do it. And then when I looked at my kids' faces, I was like, do I really want to do that? Like, is it worth it? And at one point in my life, I felt like it was worth it, because I felt like you took me through so much that I feel like I need you to feel the pain that I felt.
Yes.
But then I thought about, could my daughters live without me, knowing that I had the opportunity to make the choice?
Exactly.
Right? Because it was a choice.
Yes.
And so when I thought about that, then I prayed. And God said, "Girl, turn that car around. Turn that car around wherever you about to go. You need to go back to your house, get your stuff together, and just have an exit plan." And that's what I did. I started packing things up, important documents, because then I said, okay, Lord, I need to leave this relationship, because it's either going to be me or him. If I'm plotting his murder and he putting hands on me and not caring about the safety of my life and my children, then that means one of us is leaving out of this relationship. Exactly. And if I don't make a decision, it's going to be in a body bag.
Exactly.
So, I think that a lot of times the churches don't want to go that deep because they don't want to talk about it. Murder's a real thing. Yes. And sometimes you'll find somebody that don't have any history of violence, but it's that one pivotal moment that took them to a place that they can't return from, that caused them to do something that they regret for the rest of their life, and they spend the rest of their life paying for it. Exactly. And we've all been there. We've been in that angry mode,
Definitely.
We rolled together on some stuff. Like, girl, I got you. I got what? We going.
We going. That's it. But to your point, it's like learning how to respond and not react, you know? And I've been in kind of the same situation with my first marriage. I was just like, one day I woke up, I said, you gotta go.
Yeah.
One of us is going to get hurt.
Right.
You gotta go. And sometimes, like you said, there's been times it's been so close and you just go, you know what? Can't do this no more. Mm-hmm. But there's been so many things that could have happened, could have went certain ways, and we just got to thank God that it hasn't, that we have been blessed, to be able to say, okay, because there's been many situations that I shouldn't be here.
Right. Well, that's how we know we covered.
Exactly.
That's how I know God is real.
God is real because
when you think back over your life and you think back about some of the things you've been involved in, you like, it was nobody but God that spared me. That
got me this far.
Right.
My God, you have no idea.
Right.
You know what I mean? And a lot of people, like approachable. I'm very quiet. I'm very, whatever. But God has brought me a long way. And, all I could do is thank him for it and continue for, his grace and his mercy every day, because without it, none of us could make it each day. Because like you said, those decisions, somebody stepping in and saying, that was God saying, that's not what you need to do. Right. You need to go this way and you need to do this. And it's a point of listening, Sometimes our anger, we can't hear it. Mm-hmm. And and it's good that we're able to sit and have these conversations where we can talk to other women or talk to younger women, talk to our daughters. It ain't worth it. Walk away. Even when we were kids, you look at these girls that get in fights and stuff, get their faces slashed up, X, Y, and Z over a fight For what? And now you have that for the rest of your life. Or you go to jail. Or you kick somebody, they fall and hit their head on the curb and they die.
Right.
You know, and our anger sometimes can get us in a lot of trouble, but we've been blessed that he maneuvered us, he got us through it, and, you know, and to just keep on understanding that and keep on praying. And that's where it really brought me, where I go, you know what? God, you brought me a long way.
Right.
I honor you every day. You know, just being more into myself, self-care, and caring about other people, but really taking the time with me where I sit and I talk with God. And I have conversations where I didn't understand how to do that before. I just thought, like you said, pray. Oh, yeah. What am I doing? Now I understand I can sit and I can praying is talking to him. And then like reading the Bible and studying, that's him talking to you.
Right.
And really taking that in, you know? And I have no words how to explain how that makes me feel. You know what I mean? It's unexplainable.
Right.
It's God. Yeah.
Right.
It's God. He
Yes.
I'm like,
Come a mighty long way. A mighty long way. Yes. So I just, you know, in the pandemic, when God told me to start Ministry Without Walls, I wasn't sure exactly what I was doing this for.
Yes.
And why. And he just, you know, kind of brought back to my remembrance that everybody I've been connected to wasn't necessarily a church ministry. It wasn't because I went to church with them. It wasn't a lot of people I was connected to and had these relationships were outside the church, had nothing really to do with the church. But when it came to, you know, being progressive for the kingdom, there was some fire side, like on fire ministers, singers, like, you know, some of the women that have been in and out of here today.
Yes.
When I talk about, first of all, how we met, none of them I met in a church. Not a one. Every one of them I met by way of something. And then we got to this place. So I know it's not the brick and mortar buildings anymore. And with the pandemic, God really showed up and showed out, because while a lot of people are like, oh, the pandemic, I want it to be over. I'm like, I don't even look at it like that. God had to show us we got to do things differently. So he had to shut the world down so that you know he's real. COVID touched everybody. It didn't matter who you was, age, class, color, you know, title. It didn't matter. It touched everybody. Right? So now people falling on their knees. Now people worshiping. Now they worshiping in their house. Before, if you ain't go to church, the church mother or the deacon or the, you know, the head usher, whoever was responsible for attendance was calling your house. Sister so-and-so, you okay? We just checking on you, because they trying to figure out why you wasn't in the service. Now that nobody can have service, it's really the relationship between you and God. Yeah. Because only God knows if you checking in with him every day, right? Only God knows if you getting on your knees and laying prostrate before him. Only God knows if you worshiping him and thanking him. Yes. The church won't know because you're not there no more.
Exactly.
You're not there to show them, to put on the show. Exactly. Now it's between you and God. So now what we going to do that we can no longer put on the show?
Exactly. You know, everybody with Facebook and, you know, the YouTube and everything, you could watch it when you want, you can attend when you want. And like you said, God knows. Right. This is a time where, you know, really understanding the church and really understanding where you stand. Right. You know?
And know that we are the church.
Yes.
So wherever we gather,
that's
we have
what
a church.
Is. Exactly.
And I've been saying this for a very long time, and every pastor and leader that I'm kind of under, they're like, oh, Minister Green, you need to calm down. You know, they think I'm so radical. I'm like, I'm not radical. Like, he said it. We the church. So why I got to keep coming here every Saturday? Why I'm here Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, youth group Saturday. Then I'm coming on Sunday. I got to attend first service and second service because I'm a prayer intercessor. My husband got to come first service and second service because he a usher. Like, why?
And you see how you're saying it?
Why?
They're saying it almost as if, like, I have to. Like
I'm obligated.
Yeah, like not that I'm going because I'm having, you know, X, Y, and Z. You're doing things, you're doing events because I'm enjoying it. It's like, well, I'm here on this day and I'm here on that day. And I'm gonna. So are you doing it? Why? You know what I mean?
Because it almost becomes a checkbox.
Yeah.
Did I go to Wednesday night service? Check. Okay, pastor ain't gonna call me. Did I go to Sunday service? I remember one time I started looking at the calendar like, okay, I got to make sure I don't miss first Sunday because, you know, it's communion. I don't want him to feel no type of way. Like, there's certain Sundays I just knew I couldn't miss. And not that I was waking up wanting to miss it Sunday, but I just knew I was obligated, right?
Yes.
Church should be enjoyable.
It should
right?
be enjoyable.
You should be ready to go because of fellowship. But I felt like every time the door swung open, they had a responsibility for me to do something. So I'm running in here and I'm like, when it's my time, what is the church really doing? Right? And then when I started ministering outside of the church and I wanted the church to come alongside, like, listen, it's so many people out here that don't know God, the gospel hasn't reached them. You my home church, right? You my home base. So come alongside with me. Let's get these people so that they can understand and experience the love of God. And then they looking at me like, oh no, we don't allow outside functions. You need to do this. You need to do that. If everybody come to the church, because the church is quote unquote the hospital, right? To get well.
Yes.
Once everybody get well, even at the hospital, when you get well, what they do? Discharge you.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And then you start seeing your primary care physician, which would be God, to make sure that you are continuing your regimen in line, but you get discharged. These churches now, you got to get permission to leave. When I had to get a letter of permission to leave one church to attend another for my husband and my families, we were looking for something that my present ministry didn't have at the time. And that's the reason I'm Minister Green under this ministry. So I felt obligated. I was taking their classes. And I remember I had to go to the pastor and, pretty much get a letter to resign. And I feel like if I'm telling you I'm leaving, I mean, it's not a business transaction. But I respected the office in which you was in. I knew that I had a lot of responsibilities. And so she was more than willing to release me. And she said, listen, you need to go to that other ministry if they want to call me to verify that you are who you say you are and you have the anointing and all of these things. I have no problem doing that. But you need a ministry that has a place for your husband, a place for your kids, and a place for you. Because every other ministry prior to that I was attending, it was building me up. But then they didn't have a kids ministry. Well, I got 6 kids in my house. So where they go? Exactly. I'm just gonna leave them home on Sunday, and then I have a husband that's like, I'm not being in church 5 hours with you. This your journey. This is not necessarily my journey. So I'm like, no, I need something that got 8 o'clock service so he can get home and watch football. Like, understand? Like I know what I need, right,
exactly,
in order for this to work in the way that it's supposed to. And so then when I found it, I had to get released. And I was like, what am I getting released from? Right? That was a problem for me. But I get it. I understand it. Everybody has protocols and things like that. Yep. But now that we've all been released, is what we're going to do when it's time to come back.
Well, I've been blessed that my church actually is starting to let people come back.
Okay.
And and like you said, it's kind of that mix of where people are coming back and some people are enjoying the Facebook so much now that they don't want to come back.
They don't want to come back.
So it's like, well, I could watch it on Facebook and I could do this. But I know the feeling, like you said, you want to go to a church that you're feeling good at. You know what I mean? That you feel like they say you feel fulfilled when you leave and you enjoy going. I don't want to be a part of a church that I'm not looking forward to going every Sunday morning. Right. When I wake up and I'm getting dressed and I'm looking forward to, well, what's the word? And I'm looking forward to seeing people saying good morning and fellowshipping and the singing and everything. Like, that's what church is supposed to be about.
Yeah, you don't want to feel like
you don't want to feel obligated or a job. And if that's the way you feel, then, you have to take a deeper look into, like you said, you have to find what's right for you. And sometimes it's hard because it's hard to leave one church and to go to another. And it's hard. But I mean, if that's what you need to do and you have it takes a lot of courage to do that, to get up and leave one church to go to another. But if you need something different, go for what you need. It's not about what they want. It's about what you need. And that's what I did. I enjoy the church I go to. I look forward to going. It's not an obligation. It's not, well, what are they going to say? I don't feel like people are looking. It's, and that's what church is supposed to be. Like you said, it's supposed to be fellowship, love, teaching, and enjoyment. It shouldn't be a task or a duty. And if it is, then that's a problem.
Okay.
I don't want to kick nobody in. Sorry.
We are not asking anybody to leave their churches or their homes. What we are saying to you is, if you are not fulfilled in your present ministry, if you are not fulfilled in the office in which you hold, if you are not fulfilled by the house in which you worship, then you need to check in with God, okay, and make sure that's where he told you to be. Because sometimes we there out of convenience.
Yes.
or out of obligation because it was our family's church,
Yes.
check in with God and make sure that's where you're supposed to be. Because sometimes we're in places that God didn't send us nor He called us, and He trying to figure out why we there too.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So
exactly.
I thank you for coming. I thank you
thank
for
you.
gracing us with your presence.
Thank you. Thank
30
you for
year
inviting me.
friendship. I hope we get
Yes.
30 more. You know.
Yes, we
Praise
will.
be to God.
Praise
you know,
God,
because
we
you know, waking up is a gift every morning, especially
morning.
in this pandemic. Not that I didn't know that then, but watching how people are just not surviving at this day and age and the times that we are in, it is a blessing to wake up every morning. It's a blessing to still have friends that you've known your entire life almost. It's a blessing
Yes.
to be able to still have and maintain those relationships. So I thank you
Yes.
for coming.
Thank you for
I thank you
inviting
for
me.
spending time with me, and you are always welcome to come back.
Thank
and
you.
Yeah.
All right.
Check in with us. Ministry
you.
Without Walls. Make sure you tell your church people to, follow us, like us, subscribe to. We not church bashing. We are just having the conversations that most people have at home
Exactly.
outside of the church.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me.
Amen. So
Amen.
listen, be blessed, be great, have a great day, have a great week. And Ministry Without Walls will see you on the next episode.
Minister to ya, gonna 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 minister to ya.